Hey everybody, it is day 9 of our quarantine, and today I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite things to work on, and that is ear training. So, before we get into the subject of ear training, I want to discuss the idea of talent. One of my pet peeves is when I hear people say that a musician or an artist or any kind of craft, when someone says they're so talented, because that takes out the aspect of hard work and preparation. I don't believe anybody, or very few people, have a natural talent to make them better at a given subject. I feel most people have to put a lot of hard work in, and using the term talent kind of detracts away from the hard work that the person has put in, and it makes everything seem like just a natural ability and not the skill that it is. But that being said, comes to ear training, some people are just a little bit more talented than others. This will come easier to some people than it will to others. That doesn't mean if you try it and it's harder for you, that you'll never be able to do it. Quite the opposite. This is still a skill, and ear training is still something that you can develop. So let's get into it. Ear training. Ear training is hearing a pitch, right? That's the basic level. Being able to match pitches. Ear training affects your intonation. It's an essential skill if you're going to do any kind of jazz improvisation. And it's also going to make the better your ear is trained, the easier it's going to be when it comes to doing any kind of composition. So, what ear training is just going through the steps of making it so that the pitch you hear or the pitch that is in your head, you can either match with your voice or with your instrument, whatever your instrument is. Okay. So, like I said, it's super important. I've always worked on it with my private lesson students. My string students will tell you I spend a lot of time working on ear training, and my jazz band will also tell you that we spend some time doing that. So, ear training, it starts very, very simple. Um, you can start with just hearing a note and hearing another note and telling if which one's higher or lower, right? And that's the bottom level, which you should have done all the way back in elementary school. You probably don't even remember your elementary school music teacher working on this, just doing the classic like high note, low note, which one's the higher, which one's the lower. Okay. After that, you want to move into simple matching the pitch. Hearing a pitch, right? Maybe somebody plays it on a piano or another instrument, and maybe you just sing that pitch back and match that pitch. After you start to get good at that, which shouldn't take you too long, but it might, and that's fine. You keep working on it. After you do that, you then put your instrument on. Okay? And you're going to try and match that pitch with your instrument. It's a little easier when you're matching the same instrument. Okay, when you're matching to a different instrument, say a trumpet trying to match to a flute, um, not only do you have to match that pitch, but you kind of have to get past that timbre, which is the fancy word for the quality of the sound or the difference in the sound. And going across timbres does make pitch matching a little bit harder. So, like I said, you hear the pitch, you play it back. Working on this is huge for helping your intonation. I talked about playing with a drone and practicing with a drone and how that helps your intonation a lot. And that's because you're listening for the intervals. When you're listening for the same pitch, trying to match the same pitch, that helps with that intonation on a different level because you're listening for the matching, not listening to avoid the clashing. But they do go hand in hand. Once you start to get good at that, you will gain a better knowledge of your instrument. You'll be able to more quickly tell when something you're doing is not right, right? You'll be able to tell this pitch is out of tune, or oh, I missed an accidental, or I forgot the key change, whatever. You'll be able to tell that quicker because your ear will tell you instead of you having to rely on your brain to tell you. So once you get pretty good at matching a single note, you might want to have somebody play 2 notes to you or 3 notes, get a series of notes, and you play that note back. Another good one, which is a definite challenge, is hearing all the notes in the chord. So say somebody goes to a piano and hits 3 notes, and you hear all 3 of those notes and can find all 3 of those notes either by singing or by playing through your instrument. That's definitely a next level challenge and is really good for, again, listening in an ensemble and hearing how you're fitting with an ensemble and what the chord is and where you are in the chord, what your function within that chord is. Am I the root of the chord? Am I the fifth? Am I the third? Third has so much power to change the chord by being flat, being sharp, all that kind of stuff. It really changes the chord. Big impact. So being able to pick out the note within the chord is super important. So there's a bunch of ways to work on ear training. Luckily, again, it's well recognized as a building block of being a good musician. So if you have a piano, I would recommend either you kind of put your back to the piano and hit a random note, try and match it on your instrument, or have somebody else hit the note. It helps a lot, and you don't need somebody who knows how to play the piano. You can do this with a keyboard as well, right? Or if you have somebody who plays another instrument, just having them play a random note, you try and find it, and do it back and forth. Make a little bit of a game out of it. Build up to doing a few notes, build up to having them play a chord, and you play all the notes within the chord like an arpeggio. Really important, really does make a big difference. And again, if you're struggling with doing this on your instrument, take it back a step and do it with your voice. Sing. Like we were talking about yesterday, singing is very important and it is a big building block to being able to play an instrument. If you don't have that resource available to you, either a piano or somebody to help you out, there's a couple of websites that I was checking out that are free, that have a bunch of ear training exercises along with some other stuff. So a great website, which I haven't played around with for a while, but I used to back when I was in college to help myself with a bunch of different areas. Musictheory.net. Again, that's musictheory.net. They have ear training exercises in a bunch of different styles. I know they have one that they give you a reference pitch and then they give you another pitch and then you have a keyboard, a digital keyboard that you click the note and try and find the right note. And they have another one that uses letters. And I think, if I remember correctly, they'll play a chord and you try and figure out what notes are on the chord. Another one that I found that is free is Tone Savvy, TONESAVY.com. Has a bunch of ear training, and also Toned Ear, TONEDEAR.com, and I guess I can just put them on the screen so I don't have to spell it. But those 3 websites all have ear training exercises that you can use. I also looked up on YouTube, I typed in ear training, and I found a bunch of different channels that had a lot of ear training stuff on it, in different levels too. So, if you try something and it's too easy, you can instantly hop up to the next level and find some harder stuff. Once you start to get pretty decent at your ear training, you want to try and figure out some decent tunes. One of the things I liked to do when I was working on ear training, I would be probably not the best practice, but I would watch TV while I was practicing. And I would practice during the commercials. And when I heard a jingle, say like the McDonald's jingle, ba da ba ba ba, right? I would try and figure that out on my instrument. And that was a pretty simple way to work on that ear training. But you can go from just a simple jingle to trying to figure out some simple songs by ear. And it becomes a bit of a game. A lot of jazz people spend a lot of time on their ear training and actually doing what we call transposing. So they're listening to a jazz piece that somebody else has performed, and they're figuring out what they're doing and writing it down. They're taking it that step farther past just being able to play it on their instrument, hearing something and playing it back, but hearing something, playing it back, and then taking that next step to write it down. It's a really tough exercise, but it really does help develop that ear and the vocabulary, hearing and figuring out what makes what that professional did, what made that great. And that's not just for like with the tune, like the main tune, but also transposing or transcribing the actual solo. So looking up a Miles Davis, listening to the Miles Davis play his solo and writing it out. It's a tough exercise, but it's really good. So, ear training is one of my favorite things to work on. It's kind of fun. It to me, it feels more of a game than it does for practicing. And like I said, it makes a big difference. So, strongly recommend it. Do some ear training. You'll have fun with it, I promise. All right, that's it for today. Have a good one. See you next time.